Right. Well, I've got to get this right then. Because I slapped you lot from Stone Hall, throwing things at me. I've got to get it right. So what was his ideas for that estate? As you know, that started developing, get it ready, early in 1945. In fact, they had prisoner of war, people helping to reclaim it. Well, his idea was that he would establish these greens on Stone Lawn. Originally, they intended to establish 8. And I think the ratio was 10 houses to an acre. I can't be sure about that, but I think that was... But it was what he wanted to do with the inside of the houses that's really interesting. I've done that one on board, haven't I? Right. What he intended to do, he intended to create those greens alongside a gentleman by the name of Dr. Abbott. Anybody remember Dr. Abbott?
Yes.
A very famous local doctor. Now, Dr. Abbott hardly ever gets spoken about, but he was really the man that said that if Bilston Council don't finance what this Dr. Newrath is going to do, our committee will, because it's that important. And he was chairman of the health committee at the time. And what he did, before they could start the development, I don't know who advised him, but on November the 11th, 1962, not 1946, what am I talking about? 1946. I'm in the mid-80s, you know. Past on. 1946. I don't know who advised him, but the BBC became interested. Everybody became interested in what was happening in Bilston. Even Parliament. It was raised in Parliament by Mr. Silky, who was responsible for redeveloping the new towns all over the country. And he stood up in Parliament and he said, I want to inform members about what's happening in a town called Bilston in Staffordshire. Remember that? Remember that? Before that lot from Wolverhampton took us over. Staffordshire, not the West Midlands. And he had told Parliament about what was going on there, what Dr. Newrath and his plans meant for the local... And he told members of Parliament, we need to keep an eye on what's happening in Bilston, because we may feel that we want to follow what they're trying to do. Anyway, this notorious broadcast, I've got a copy of it here somewhere. Yeah, I have. About 10 weeks ago, I think it was Carol, I received a phone call from Carol, and she says, Tom, she says, we've come across a very, very interesting BBC broadcast from 1946, all about Bilston. She says, and it's directly tied up with an exhibition that we're putting on downstairs. And she said, because it was made in 1946, it's a bit, they didn't have the recording facilities like they got now, so it was a bit warped and all the business, some of the words were missing and that. And she said, what we'd like you to do, she said, we'd like to do that broadcast again, because we think Bilston people, modern day Bilston people, you should know what that broadcast was and what was in it. And I said, well, I don't know about that, Carol. I said, I think you've got the wrong man. I said, me, with my black country accent? I said, I don't think so. She said, I think we want you to do it. I said, well, can't you get anybody else? And she said, yeah, we can get lots of people. We can get them from the technical college, we can get them from various colleges. He said, we can get plenty of people, but we don't want plenty of people. Want you to do it. I said, well, she said, I'll send you the script, read the script. If you don't want to do it, just say no, and we'll understand. So I was sent the script, and as soon as I read the script, I knew that it had got to be done. I knew that it was actually pinpointing the attitude of society in Bilston in 1946, and particularly the attitude of people at the top. And this is it. I can't read it all from you. What I'm trying to point out to you, he's saying in this broadcast, and remember this, 1946, no television, right? The radio ruled in every house. Everybody listened to the radio. So when this broadcast went out, at 6:20, November the 11th, 1946, millions were listening to it. Not only in the black country, all over the country, because that's what people did know. They had no other choice. If they wanted some entertainment, they put the radio on. So people would listen to it. But what sort of image would they have gained about Bilstonians? Because he opens up by saying, we're doing an experiment in Bilston, an old experiment. And he said, we've learned a great deal over the last few years about housing in Bilston and what we should be doing about it. And he said, one of the things that disturbs us, the people born and bred in a slum atmosphere are unchangeable. I'm sure I shouldn't be saying that, he says. He definitely shouldn't have been. He said, and if we move them from slum housing into these brand new houses that we're building, this new estate at Stonehall, we're concerned that after a time they'll turn those houses into the same conditions from what they've been used to. Well, you can imagine, there's a notice on the exhibition, and it makes reference to this broadcast, and it's to this exhibition underneath. It says, we don't know what the reaction of the local people were to that broadcast. I can tell them. Oh yes, I'll tell you. Because unfortunately, where they located that exhibition was very close to a family that had been in dispute with Bilston Council for months about moving them out of a shop. It was a shop they lived in, and they lived in atrocious conditions. There was 3 daughters, a grandmother, mother and father. And they lived in, well, it was a hovel. That's all it was. It was a hovel. It hardly had any facilities, what you can call facilities. So how do you think that they reacted when they heard this broadcast? Especially when reference is made that we're worried about people that we're moving into this Stonehall estate are going to bring it down to a very low level because of their attitude towards daily living that they've experienced for years, you know, living in a slum. Well, let me tell you this. You know, and I know, that if you lived in a slum property in Bilston, or Darliston, Wednesbury, if you were a housewife, what did you do? The house may have been falling down, leaking roofs, damp walls, everything. But I'll tell you this, 9 times out of 10, and you women know this, it's up to you, you women, you take this, you know that the housewife would make sure that that house was spotless. And how do we know that? Well, I'll tell you. This is a routine from 1946 that was established following that broadcast. It was a routine to show that the contents of that broadcast, when it made reference to their worries about whether the families being moved would be able to keep the new properties in the condition to what they wanted them kept in. This is the response of what typical housewives in Bilston, their normal domestic week. Just listen to this. Sundays, attend church and chapel. Kids, the same. Boots polished, everybody smartly dressed. Sunday afternoon, sewing and mending clothes. Rest of the afternoon, visiting relatives. Now that's not an irresponsible family living in a slum, is it? That sounds to me like people that were all well organised. Monday, wash day, 6:30 in the morning. Clean out the boiler, light the fire, all that efficient work, get the dolly tub out, mangle, use some wreckage blue, and hope that it ain't raining. Because if it was raining, you couldn't put your washing out to dry and you had to take it indoors. When you're finished, wash down the brew house floor. While all that was going on, the housewife would be cooking meals for the rest of the family. Tuesday, ironing day. Using heavy irons. Remember the heavy irons? Empty chamber pots. You remember them? Wash them out with cheese fluid. Scrub all the floors. Cut up newspaper for the toilets. Wednesday, clean all the bedrooms and the carpets, and then start on the windows. Thursday, all the tile floors to be cleaned until they're shone. And you might have time left for baking. Friday, blackleading day. Remember the blackleading? You remember the pride of the housewives? They wanted that fireplace to shine. They wanted the trinkets that they had around it to shine as well. They were so house proud. Polishing all the brushes. And that don't sound like somebody that's irresponsible. The type of person that you shouldn't move into a new house. And then of course you had bath night with a neighbour. And Saturday, the main shopping day, cleaning the bedrooms again and changing the bed linen. And then you're back to Sunday again. So you've got to sum up, you've got to look at that broadcast from the view of a housewife that was living in a slum property in Temple Street, Hartswell Street, Gossett Street, Bramley. What would their reaction? They probably wanted to get to that broadcasting house and throttle somebody for allowing it to be made. But there you go. And I think that broadcast did a lot of damage. And I think also that probably it started the backward trend. Members were enthusiastic over it. Whatever their political affiliation, they wanted this scheme to work. They wanted to provide these houses for people. But that sort of comment started a slight rift. And unfortunately, it was started by a man It was 100% in favour of it. But you see how things go wrong, how easily they go wrong. And so, we come to the point of the houses on Stonewall. What type of houses are they proposing? Well, pardon?
Are we going to have any time for contributions?
Yes, I'm going to finish, Frank. It looks like we won't be able to get round to Stonewall. Oh. Well, it looks like, I mean, let's be fair, you have been brought here because we want a contribution from you. We want your views. So we need the time. So it looks to me is that it was like have to have some very close talks with Sophie and Carol, because it's quite obvious, as somebody said to me twice already, that seminar on Stone Lawn in Bilston should have been an all-day one. It should have started in the morning, not at 2 o'clock, so that it allowed time for deep details, going into all the details about what was trying to be achieved. And we, as Frank says, we haven't got time.
Well, you've spent an hour and a half.
Yeah,
That must be enough time.
And it's
questions now?
it may well be my fault, but if you've got any questions, the floor's now open to Frank.